Have you ever scrolled through social media, seen a friend's latest triumph, or, even just heard about a colleague's success and felt that familiar pang, that little voice asking, why am I so behind? Or whispering, if only I were like them, everything would just be easier, better.
It's a feeling that seems almost universal, isn't it? We all seem to fall into this trap at some point.
Oh, it's incredibly common. And you're right, it's a habit that operates almost beneath the surface, kind of quietly. While it might feel like just observing others, this constant comparison, it can really chip away at our confidence and steal our joy without us even fully recognizing the damage it's doing.
It absolutely can. And that feeling, that sense of maybe inadequacy or restlessness, it so often stems from this one simple, powerful act: comparing ourselves to others. It's a habit we're often not even aware we're doing, but it's kind of constantly running in the background of our thoughts.
And it's exactly this habit, this comparison trap, that our source material for this deep dive, an article called The Art of Not Comparing Ourselves, really helps us unpack. So welcome everyone to this deep dive.
Welcome to a podcast inspired by the YouTube channel Climb Up Podcast, where we explore topics on personal growth and finding meaning in life.
Our mission today, really guided by the insights in this source, is to properly understand this deeply ingrained tendency. We're going to explore why we compare ourselves so much, like what are its roots. We'll look honestly at the negative impacts it has on our well-being. And maybe most importantly, we'll pull out practical, actionable solutions from the source to help you break free from this cycle and shift your focus toward becoming the best version of yourself. It's about reclaiming your own path.
It really is. The core challenge is redirecting that energy, which is so easily spent looking outward back inward, where growth and genuine fulfillment actually happen.
Okay, so let's start there then. Why is comparison so deeply ingrained? It feels almost automatic for so many of us. The source dives into several root causes, and some stretch back a surprisingly long way.
That's right. One of the fundamental points the source makes is that there's actually an evolutionary basis to this. Think about our ancient ancestors. Comparison wasn't about who had the nicest cave painting. It was, crucial for survival. It helped individuals figure out their place within a social group, identify potential threats or allies, and avoid being kicked out from a toll. Being ostracized could literally be a death sentence back then. So the ability to quickly evaluate yourself relative to others became sort of hardwired into our brains, a mechanism for social navigation and survival.
Wow, okay, so it's not just a modern failing, like something wrong with us now. It's tied to something fundamental about how we evolved to exist in groups. That puts a different spin on it.
It shows how deeply rooted the impulse is,
Yeah.
Even if the targets of comparison have changed dramatically, Instagram feeds instead of hunting prowess. The source also highlights how this ancient wiring intersects with our personal psychology, specifically things like low self-esteem and self-doubt.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. If you're already feeling a bit shaky about your own worth, you might look to others to kind of gauge where you stand.
Exactly. People struggling with feelings of inadequacy often use comparison as a way to measure their worth, but it's a total trap because they're usually measuring themselves against perceived strengths in others, which almost inevitably reinforces the feeling that they're not good enough rather than providing any real validation. It's a cycle that just feeds itself negatively.
And speaking of things that feed the cycle, the source points a pretty clear finger at one of the biggest modern culprits: social media.
Oh, undeniably. Social media is like a supercharger for unhealthy comparison. What we see are often these meticulously curated, idealized versions of lives, highlight reels of success, happiness, perfection, all that stuff. When you're scrolling through that, it's incredibly easy to contrast those filtered snapshots with your own messy, complicated, everyday reality. Your normal life suddenly feels dull or insufficient when held up against a feed of someone else's best of moments.
Right. It's the difference between watching someone's carefully edited movie trailer versus living your own unedited documentary. No wonder we feel short.
Precisely. And the source also notes that sometimes these patterns are learned really early on, like your upbringing can play a significant role.
How so?
Well, if, for example, parents frequently compared you or your siblings to others, whether it was about grades or achievements or even behavior, you might internalize that as a standard way of evaluating yourself. That habit of constant external measurement can then carry right into adulthood, where you just continue to measure yourself against others because, that's the framework you were given.
So it can literally be a learned behavior passed down through generations.
Wow. And for anyone who struggles with perfectionism, I can imagine comparison is just constant torment. It's a massive one, according to the source. That drive for perfection often leads to comparing yourself against those who appear flawless, or effortlessly successful, or uniquely talented. But because perfection is fundamentally unattainable, this comparison almost always leads to intense frustration, self-criticism, and a deepening sense of inadequacy. You're basically chasing a ghost based on someone else's perceived state.
That makes total sense. It sets an impossible bar. And the final root cause mentioned is something called a lack of mental flexibility. What does the source mean by that?
This refers to a kind of rigid thinking. It's the belief that there's only one right path to success or happiness or a good life. So people compare themselves to others to make sure they are on that specific, predetermined track. The source points out the limitation here is missing the reality that success and fulfillment are incredibly personal. They look different for everyone based on individual values, talents, circumstances, priorities, all that. This rigid focus outward prevents you from seeing and valuing the multitude of valid paths that exist, including your own unique one.
So it's this potent mix then. Ancient wiring, personal vulnerabilities like low self-esteem or perfectionism, environmental factors like social media, maybe learned behavior from childhood, and even a rigidity in how we think about life paths, all conspiring to keep us looking outward.
That's the core idea, yeah. Understanding these roots is really the first step in recognizing the pattern in yourself.
And understanding the pattern naturally leads us to the consequences. The source details the real cost of this constant comparison. What does this habit actually do to us?
The impacts are significant and often more damaging than we realize. One of the most direct effects is a marked reduction in self-confidence. When you're constantly measuring yourself against others who seem smarter, more successful, more popular, more attractive, the list just goes on. It reinforces a narrative of not enough. This comparison breeds deep insecurity and erodes your belief in your own capabilities and worth.
It's like a constant self-inflicted wound to your confidence, just over and over.
Exactly. And over time, this can have serious implications for our mental health. The source explicitly links chronic comparison to increased risks of depression and anxiety. If you are perpetually feeling that you don't measure up, that constant state of perceived failure or inadequacy can be a heavy psychological burden, contributing to clinical mental health challenges.
That's a critical point. This isn't just about feeling a bit jealous now and then. It can genuinely impact your overall well-being and mental state.
It can also drain your energy and undermine your drive. The source notes that comparison can significantly decrease your motivation to pursue your own personal goals. If you look at someone else's seemingly effortless achievements and feel like your own efforts are futile by comparison, it can be incredibly demotivating. You might think, why bother trying if I can never reach that level? This feeling of futility can prevent you from even starting or maybe continuing on your own path.
It stops you before you even get going, or it makes you give up too soon.
Yeah.
And how does it affect our relationships with others?
It often fosters negative emotions towards the very people you're comparing yourself to. The source highlights that comparison frequently leads to jealousy and even resentment. You might resent someone's success or happiness, especially if you perceive it as unearned or if you feel stuck while they seem to be moving forward. This creates distance and can sour genuine connection.
So it isolates us internally and can damage our external relationships too. It turns potential inspiration into envy.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from connection or learning to competition and this sense of perceived scarcity.
And it's not just modern self-help telling us this, right? The source brings in perspectives from some really insightful thinkers who've diagnosed aspects of this problem long before social media even existed.
That's a key point. This is a deeply human issue. The source references thinkers like Derek Sivers. He has a fascinating take on goal setting and comparison. Sivers argues that sharing your goals widely can actually be counterproductive.
Counterproductive? Huh. We're often told sharing goals creates accountability.
His perspective is that the act of telling people your goals can give your brain a premature sense of accomplishment. Like you get social validation, maybe praise or encouragement, and this can feel like you're already on your way, reducing the internal pressure or motivation needed to actually put in the hard, often unglamorous work required to achieve the goal. It allows for comparison based on announced ambition rather than actual progress and can sort of trick your brain into feeling satisfied too early. He actually advocates for keeping goals private to maintain that internal drive.
That's a really insightful flip on the common wisdom. It makes you think about why you're sharing a goal. Is it for external validation or genuine accountability to yourself?
Precisely. Then the source brings in someone like Wayne Dyer, the renowned author and speaker. His philosophy, particularly in works like Your Erroneous Zones, strongly argues that comparison fundamentally distracts you from discovering your unique, true meaning and purpose in life.
Because that discovery happens. Where exactly?
According to him, Dyer emphasized that finding your purpose is an inward journey. It's about understanding your own values, your passions, your talents, and what you feel called to contribute. Constantly looking outward and measuring yourself against others just pulls your energy and attention away from that essential internal exploration where true meaning resides.
So, comparison is essentially a barrier to self-discovery.
Okay.
The source also highlights the powerful example of Nick Vujicic.
His life is just a profound illustration of this principle. I mean, despite being born without limbs, Vujicic didn't spend his life comparing himself to those with full physical capacity or dwelling on what he lacked. Instead, he focused intensely on leveraging what he did have. His voice, his spirit, his ability to connect with others, his resilience, his immense impact and life satisfaction come from maximizing his unique strengths and finding his purpose within his own context, rather than lamenting differences based on comparison.
A truly powerful, real-world demonstration of focusing inward.
Yeah. And finally, Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, author of Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl's work is deeply focused on the human search for meaning. He taught that meaning isn't something universal that you measure yourself against others to find. No, it is intensely personal and unique to each individual, discovered through, creative work, loving relationships, and the attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering. The source points out that comparison is fundamentally a distraction from this vital personal quest for meaning. It pulls you into an external rat race when the most important work is finding your unique reason for being.
So across these different perspectives, from goal psychology to finding meaning, the consistent theme seems to be that comparison is a diversion. It pulls you outward and prevents you from focusing on your unique internal path and purpose.
Exactly. It's a powerful reinforcing message from diverse fields.
Okay, so we understand some of the deep roots of comparison. We see the significant damage it causes to our confidence, motivation, mental health, and relationships. And we have these profound thinkers telling us that it's a barrier to finding our own authentic path. The critical question now is, what can we actually do about it? The source provides a wealth of practical solutions.
It starts with the most fundamental step, cultivating self-awareness. You have to begin by truly understanding yourself, your own unique strengths, your values, your inherent capabilities, and yes, your weaknesses too.
The source suggests a simple but effective exercise, explicitly asking yourself, what are my strengths, and actually writing them down.
Right. And this isn't about arrogance, it's about shifting your internal gaze. Instead of focusing on what others have or seem good at, you deliberately focus on what you bring to the table. This act of acknowledging your own strengths is a powerful counterpoint to the not enough narrative fueled by comparison. It shifts the focus from external evaluation to internal appreciation.
And a related, incredibly powerful practice the source emphasizes is gratitude.
Absolutely. Regularly pausing to reflect on and appreciate the positive aspects of your life is a direct antidote to the scarcity mindset that comparison thrives on. When you're focused on what you have, health, relationships, opportunities, even simple daily comforts, it's much harder to feel inadequate based on what others possess. Gratitude shifts your perspective from what's missing compared to them to what's abundant in my own life.
That makes sense. It recenters you on your own reality. And given its role in fueling comparison, limiting social media must be on the list, right?
It's a crucial one. The source advises being conscious of the time you spend on social media and, maybe even more importantly, your mindset while you're using it. Recognize that these platforms are curated, showcasing highlights, not the full, often messy, picture of life. Remember that. The goal isn't necessarily to delete everything, but to be a discerning consumer. Use it mindfully, perhaps for genuine connection or specific inspiration, rather than letting it become a constant benchmark against which you unfairly measure yourself.
So awareness of the platform and awareness of your reaction to it. Got it. And what if you see someone successful? How does the source suggest handling that impulse to compare?
It suggests reframing it entirely. Instead of letting it trigger jealousy, view successful people as potential teachers. Analyze their strategies, their habits, their mindset. Ask yourself, okay, what can I learn from this person? Can you adapt any of their approaches or ways of thinking to your own goals and circumstances? This turns a potentially negative comparison into a positive learning opportunity, shifting from envy to empowerment.
That's a fantastic reframe from "I wish I were them" to what can I learn from how they did that?
Exactly. And applying those potential learnings brings us neatly to setting personal goals.
Goals based on your path, not someone else's race.
Precisely. Define your goals based on your values, your passions, and your unique circumstances. The source suggests frameworks like the SMART method, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Using a structure like this helps you define aspirations that are grounded in your reality and your priorities, keeping your focus firmly on your journey and what progress looks like for you, independent of what anyone else is doing.
It grounds you in your own context, definitely. What about practices like meditation or mindfulness? How do they fit into this?
Well, mindfulness practices are powerful tools for developing the self-awareness we talked about earlier. They teach you to observe your thoughts, including those sneaky comparative thoughts, without judgment and without getting swept away by them. By anchoring yourself in the present moment through practices like meditation, you reduce the mental space available for dwelling on external comparisons or anxieties about not being enough based on someone else's perceived status. It helps you reside more fully in your own experience.
It sounds like they build that internal muscle to choose where you place your attention. That's key. The source also includes seeking professional support, which is really important to mention.
Absolutely. If the habit of comparison is deeply rooted and significantly impacting your mental health, perhaps contributing to persistent anxiety, depression, or crippling self-doubt, seeking help from a therapist or counselor is a courageous and valuable step. They can provide tailored strategies and help address any underlying issues fueling the comparison habit. It's okay to ask for help.
And perhaps one of the most liberating solutions mentioned, redefining success on your own terms.
Yes. Letting go of the idea that there's a single universal definition of success that applies to everyone. Because there isn't. Success is incredibly personal. It should be defined by your values, your unique circumstances, and your definition of a meaningful life, not by external benchmarks or what society or social media tells you it should look like. Finding your unique path requires defining what success means specifically to you.
That's powerful permission to focus on what truly matters to you. And tying all these strategies together, the source offers a final, crucial practice.
Yes, and this might be the most potent antidote. Focusing relentlessly on personal progress. The goal here is to shift your primary benchmark. Instead of measuring yourself against others, measure your growth against your past self.
Compare yourself to.
Yeah, sure.
From yesterday or last month.
Exactly. Where were you a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago? What have you learned? How have you grown? What skills have you developed? What challenges have you overcome? This keeps your focus squarely on your own development arc. It's about your unique journey, your evolution, and your forward momentum, making external comparisons far less relevant and far less likely to derail your confidence or motivation.
It makes your journey the standard rather than someone else's destination. I like that.
And that's a standard you have full agency over.
So we've taken a deep dive into this almost universal human habit of comparison. We've explored its ancient roots in survival, its entanglement with our personal psychology and learned behaviors, and how modern life, it amplifies it. We've seen the significant damage it can inflict on our self-worth, our motivation, and our mental health. We've heard how insightful thinkers across different fields identify it as a barrier to finding our own authentic path and meaning.
And most importantly, we've pulled practical wisdom from the source on how to actively counter it. Build that self-awareness, practice gratitude to shift your focus to abundance, be mindful of social media's curated reality. Learn from others rather than envying them. Set goals based on your own path. Use mindfulness to stay grounded in your own experience. Seek help if the struggle is significant. Redefine what success means uniquely to you. And consistently measure your growth against your past self.
Comparing ourselves is natural, it seems. A human tendency, something wired into our past. But this deep dive, guided by our source, shows us clearly that it doesn't have to control our present or dictate our future. By consciously and consistently shifting our focus inward towards self-awareness, gratitude, our own unique goals, and our personal progress, we can significantly loosen its grip and protect our confidence and happiness.
It really is about deciding that your unique journey is the one that truly matters most.
And that leaves us with a powerful thought to ponder as you go about your day. If the only person you truly need to compare yourself to is who you were yesterday, what does that imply about the inherent value, the beauty, and the significance of your